And we are live. Hello, Luke. This was an absolute must-win game. It's finished 1-1. We're about to do the instant match reaction. Hello for everyone from Blue Tinted Glasses. This is for Fox 8 TV with Leicester City Down Under. And this is the instant match reaction. Luke, this picture probably says it all. What a shit bit of weather that was in the Midlands today. Talk to me. What are your initial feelings about that game?
Very, very frustrating. It's a roller coaster of emotions with Cooper. You hate him for about 45 minutes. You hate him when you see the starting 11, and then you come back and momentum switches in our favor and you come round. But look, what's that, 5 or 6 games now? We still haven't got a win. Yes, we've got a draw. Do you feel like, we're lucky to get a draw to get the equaliser, or do you feel like it's 3 points lost?
I think we were quite good in that second half, to be honest. I do feel it feels like 3 points lost. I mean, you know that I'm kind of got the trademark on Coward Cooper. And I feel like we did go for it in the second half. But again, we just left it a little bit too late. Yep, guys, welcome aboard. Everyone who's joining us from Blue Tinted Glasses, join us in the comments. Really want to know what you think. The Cooper effect is insane. I'll tell you what, Luke, to help you out, let me go through some of the stats because I think that's going to help you out. Yeah, I'm not surprised that we're going to get a few of these Steve Cooper out from Foxy Pools 20 UK. So here's the match overview. It's finished 1-1. We had more possession, 58%, which is probably what I expected. Maybe a bit more at the start of the game. But look at this for expected goals, Luke. Everton still, at the end of the day, were more likely to score than we did. Now, maybe it didn't feel like that come the end of the game. But that's what the stats say. I'm going to go run through some comments. Cooper is definitely getting his knob sucked by Ayew. We'll come to that, Chips, in a moment. You've put that much more eloquently than I would. I think they're related. Sean James, head loss when the lineups came out. Head loss during the first half. Head loss at Madidi coming up. Head loss after the game. Sean, mate, I agree with you 100%. I think we're going to go through a lot of that. Dark Web Online, a fair result, but frustration. We haven't won any of these games yet. Do you know what, Dark Web? I think you're right. I think if you're looking at that rationally, that probably is true. Sat Cooper up the post-match interview. We'll do a poll a little bit later, and I'm pretty sure that who wants Cooper to stay is not going to be too many. I don't think going for it is in Cooper's dictionary. All right, we'll come back to some of the comments in a minute. So just to go through some other stuff, here I've got some of the stats. Now, this is just taken from a sofa score, so take it with a pinch of salt. But this is sort of showing you how different people performed. Your standout performer is for sure Steffi Madidi. We'll definitely come to him. I thought he was electric, Luke. He honestly looked like Leroy Sané to me or something like that. He was unbelievable. Ndidi, I mean, he started the game slowly, but by the end, and I will say this happened when Buonanotte came on and he pushed up with him, that he really got into the game. So I would love to get your take on that. And then for Everton, Ilman Ndiaye, got to say, he had a great game. McNeil also was good there, drifting around and things like that. But let's start with the lineups, because here we go. This is what I think. A few great comments here. Kunal should have went from Everton from first minute. I'm in your camp, Kunal. Thomas, I'm saying it right here, boys. Cooper out, and I don't care if it sounds reactionary. That was so turgid and unbelievably inept against a very weak Everton. Facundo has to be starting. I don't think Bilal is Prem ready. So I'll let you have a bit of space now, Luke. Talk to me about everything. I've shown you some stats, some lineups. Let's talk about the first half to begin with, right? So let's think about what you made of our lineup and what you were thinking.
Okay, so to begin with the lineup, again, you already know my thoughts on the fullback position. And also I was very, very... to be honest with you, before when I first saw the 11, when I saw Ndidi in that double pivot position, you talk about him being a victim of that pressing trigger, particularly under his time at Rodgers. And I was a little worried with how they get set up under Sean Dyche, that McNeil might rob the ball off him and we could turn the ball over in transition and concede a goal. But that wasn't the case. Ndidi was pushing further the pitch, kind of similar to Skip does in that position. And he was absolutely brilliant in terms of how much better has he gotten in having his back to goal, receiving the ball and then turning and progressing up the pitch. That wasn't in his wheelhouse about 2 or 3 seasons ago. So give the man his roses. He was brilliant again in another position. Moving on to El Khanous. Saying he's not Prem ready yet may be a bit harsh. He does need time to gel. He is young. What I will say is that I don't think he's an out-and-out 10. I think he'd be much better in an Enzo system as a high-pressing 8, particularly in that Keenan Dewsbury Hall. He could be like a like-for-like sub, but that's not the case anymore. They're both not here. Although he also could maybe be in a double pivot, but I don't think we'll see Cooper do that. So Khanous, I don't think he's a 10, but I do think we need to give him more time. IU on the right-hand side, I can understand him coming on as a finisher in the last 15, 20 minutes, holding the game up. As a starter and playing a full 90 minutes, I just can't get behind that. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he's bad, but in this game in particular, it doesn't make sense to me why you wouldn't go more attacking.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with you. I just want to bring up one comment, which is going to sound really pathetic, but I actually think has a really big point. So LCFC fan 15, difficult to play your first start in that shithole of weather. Is it fair to say that, I mean, the weather was really bad. They literally delayed kickoff by 5 to 10 minutes. So could you say that affected our performance and the result, or am I just being way too generous towards Steve Cooper?
What did the weather affect? You could make the same argument. It affected everybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, I don't think. Do you think it does? Made it? Or you think it scraping the barrel a bit?
Well, I will say this, which is that I've played in conditions like that, and it is honestly really awful. So a bit of an anecdote. I remember I turned up to one of our games on the Sunday once, and I ride my bike there, and I was wearing my wet overalls. And so the game started, and I just didn't take my overalls off. I'm not lying. I played better than everyone because I wasn't getting as wet. So I think it can make a difference. But at a professional level, it's really, I agree. It applies to both teams. Everton are also there. Just want to shout out Locks from Blue Tinted Glasses. Hope you enjoyed this match day live. And also anyone who's come over, would love it if you could subscribe to both for Fox's Sake TV and LCFC Down Under. It really helps us get the channel going. We like to try and provide good and analytical comments, not just be reactionary takes, although I think we are going to say Coward Cooper and Cooper out a lot in this show, but we're trying to be objective and use stats where possible to make opinions. You made some really good points there. I just want to kind of come to the Everton lineup a little bit as well, because they had some interesting things, right? So I'm looking at this lineup and I'm thinking, oh my God, they're playing James Garner at right back and Ashley Young. They're so desperate for cover that they can't even put a left-footed player at left back. They've got Ashley Young there. So I'm thinking we can really take advantage here. Neither of their double pivot from the last game started. So Idrissa Gueye, who I called out in my pre-match analysis, wasn't even playing. So you've got an aging Decore. Mangala, I think, is a good player, but didn't really light up the Premier League last year at Forest. And I just thought, wow, this is like ideally suited for us. But really, the start of the game, I think you've got to give Sean Dyche a lot of credit. Everton came out of the blocks way faster. It's interesting you mentioned Ndidi. I think he had a really good game again overall. I think his weakest period probably was in the first 5 to 10 minutes. And that is, of course, when Everton scored. It wasn't Ndidi's fault. It was actually Everton's star man by far, which was Ilman Ndiaye, who was, Says put this here. Ndiaye turned into prime Neymar. I mean, you got to give him credit. He looked great. I don't know how much they paid for him, but he had Justin on toast a lot, and we've got to talk about Justin. In fact, let's take that a little bit of a sidetrack. James Justin, what did you make of his overall performance?
JJ came a bit better in the second half, but in the first half he was poor, got caught ball watching, got caught. Big thing to take away from that first is how convoluted and all over the place all of our players are in position. Both Christensen and JJ swapped sides several times. I did the same thing. So I don't know if that's just coaching and down to Cooper or just ball chasing, but I think JJ was definitely at fault for that. He got skinned that first goal, and also Winks as well in the process. So I think JJ, what was interesting to point out, one of the first things we picked out was that JJ, for a lot of that period, the first 10, 15 minutes, was the one that was further advancing up the pitch again on that right-hand side when it's usually Christensen, although it did alternate throughout the game. One thing to mention is I wonder if now with Madidi on that left-hand side playing again, is there a reason why we're seeing the ball from the fullback position going further at the right-hand side of the pitch now instead of the left?
Yeah, good points. LCFC fan here, but Justin impressed me after weathering the initial storm in the first half, pun intended. I love a good dad joke, so you're getting shouted out from me there for sure. I agree with what Kuna was saying here. Enzo would have won this game easily. Definitely agree. So I just want to come back to this lineup and where I felt it was strong and weak. So I think looking at the game in the way that Everton play, they struggle when the ball's moved around quickly, left to right, and their players are kind of old. I mean, you literally got Ashley Young, which is an ironic name for him, Michael Keane. These guys aren't, what they were a few years ago. And so I'm just frustrated that we didn't really do that enough. And, this, I think Silver Fox really put it. JJ and Ayew are not a good combination on the right-hand side. Ricardo and Fatawu needed. I totally agree. So, where I think to be fair, the game's got away from us is that we started with Bilal El Khanous as the 10. Now, you said to me as well that you don't think he's like a natural number 10. I agree with you. I noticed that he was drifting left a lot and maybe even to the 6th position. So I think he sees himself more as a deep line playmaker. That's not a problem, by the way, but is he Premier League ready? He was thrown a start. And honestly, I felt like for the first 55 minutes, we were playing with 10 men. And look, I don't want to jump on a player's back. I've said this many times that many players have struggled to come to grips with the Premier League. Robert Pires is always the example. You could even say Thierry Henry struggled in his first 6 games, which sounds crazy, but it's honestly true before people turn it around. And we probably should have started Buonanotte because when he came on, I felt like Leicester actually started playing. But I think what a lot of people are saying here, right, is a lot of people here are basically saying like, coming back to that comment, it's JJ and Ayew. And I think that's another mistake that we got wrong, right? So Jordan Ayew, I don't think he had a bad game per se, but he's what I call a huff and puffer, right? He's a bit like me on the pitch. He'll run around, he'll win the ball back, he'll win you free kicks. He is positive towards the team. But if you want a player in an attacking position, what you need is someone who carries a goal threat. And it's interesting that for both teams, who were the best players? It was Ilman Ndiaye for Everton, and it was definitely Steffi Madidi for Leicester. Why were they the best players? Because they were attacking. They were willing to have a go. Sometimes they lost the ball, but when it came off, they were getting in one-on-one, causing chaos, having the shot. Could you just imagine, Luke, if we had 2 exceptional wingers? Do we have 2 exceptional wingers? Well, I think we do. And one of them was on the bench. So that's how I want to say it. So we'll come into the second half in a moment. But again, tell me what you thought of that first half.
I think that Khanous, I think he looks a lot more comfortable distributing the ball deeper. Kind of like the first thing I said about him was Yuri Tillman vibes. He looks a lot more comfortable feeding the ball further up the pitch. He's quite reliable on the ball, but in terms of like, his positioning, as you were right to call out, he was drifting left all over the place. Like you said, felt like we're playing of 10 men. I agree. I spot on also agree with Ayew. I just think that why would you not play? Look, in my opinion of the aging, defensive double pivot that you saw come into the team for Everton, I just don't understand. If they're not very good, they have no builders in that side, why we weren't pressing much more and playing a much more aggressive side, why we're not starting Ricky P. I sound like a broken record, free Ricky P. And
Free
also
Ricardo.
Free Ricardo, and why not play for Taiwo on the right-hand side? I'm sick of seeing him come on the left. When has he come on the left and any time he's been tried and looked good there? It's ridiculous. That's one thing. That's it. I'm back on the Cooper out train.
Yeah, Simon here. Starting Bilal and not Faku with those performances makes me wonder what Cooper is watching in training. What judgments is he making? I think you got a point there. I mean, I don't think on paper it's that bad to want to try and get like your brand new star player into the team playing who's going to be an important part of the future. Because remember, Buonanotte is a bit like buying a pet at Christmas, right? We've only got him for 1 season. I doubt we're going to have him next season because he looks so good. So it does make sense there. But at the same time, Buonanotte's already proved himself in the Premier League. I think he's already played like 40 or 50 times. So he's up to speed. He knows how to get a gear. And I do feel, like I said, that if we'd so a lot of people are saying, why didn't we like play the game like we did in the last 30? And that was always my fear with Cooper. It's just a bit too defensive. Is that we could have started this game with Fatawu and, Ricardo in the team, right? And really go for it. We should have done. And I think we'd have caused them problems. And we haven't put Ricardo on again. He hasn't played a single minute of Premier League football, which is outrageous. If he hands in the transfer request, that'll be awful management. I'm going to come to some other comments here, some interesting ones here. We can't really press in Cooper's system because it doesn't work. Too much gaps and inconsistency. They kept playing around it. I'll be honest, I don't quite agree with that. Because I think we actually, especially in the second half, won the ball back a lot and we do quite well with it. And I don't think Everton made that much. Although, for example, Calvert-Lewin almost did score, didn't he? With Mads making a really good save towards the end when they did break on transition. I actually think we are able to win the ball, but it's just when we get the ball, we're not really effective with it enough because of the players that we've got are, well, Madidi, when he got the ball, was brilliant, right? But it's like, if only we had more attacking players like that. What do you think?
Well, I want to ask you that. So do you think it's I think we have the players because we've seen that under Enzo. And I think that, is it the players or is it the coaching? How many players did you see not moving off the ball in the first half and creating opportunities? And basically everyone was marked and just standing there. So it was really, really frustrating to watch in periods. And there was a reason why we couldn't progress the ball further up the pitch and why it was breaking down a lot. Then you see a ball go over the top and then it turns over. So in my opinion, it's the coaching. And we'll get onto that, why I think that as well when we talk about Winks later.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know what? Let's go through some of these players now, because I think we all know now the story of the game. So then what's happened with the game? So I'll skip to him. But where I think we then came back into it, so like I said, yeah, this man, even though I don't think he directly contributed to us getting a point out of it, I think as soon as Buonanotte came on, the game changed. All of a sudden, we look way more threatening. And so if we'd have started that way, we would have been better. So I think that was definitely a thing. But so many people are saying here that, like, you know, the Madidi Fatawu sub at that time the game was criminal. Does that make any sense to you? And, you know, genuinely, I can't comprehend his subs. I would suppose that Eduard Vivardi makes sense. But yeah, like, why take Madidi off? Madidi was not tired. He looked the most likely player to get the winner for us. Again, why? So yeah, I guess what I'm coming to is this, right? It's this guy, right? And I guess I'm hating on him a lot. But the thing is, Luke, and I'm actually I was gonna say Luke actually said this to me, right? So I don't want to steal his thunder. But essentially, Luke says to me, other than occasionally offering you a left-footed cross that doesn't reach its target, what does Victor Christensen give you? He doesn't give you enough. Right, you're right to say as well that many times in the game he gets attracted to a man and he follows him across the pitch, so he completely vacates the left back position. So he's not even offering you anything defensive. And what if I was the coach? I would take Christensen out of the team and I'd put Fatal into the team, and I'd do exactly the same system that we played last year. We have two wingers, so you've got twice the threat on both sides, and then you could have Ndidi and either Buonanotte or Bilal El Khanous as the 10s. And then you don't even need to put Ricardo in, although I personally would, but you could have Skip and Ndidi as the double pivot, or put Ricardo in for one of those. And I just think the team would work way better because that's how we're used to playing. Yeah, look at this from Sean. VK, sorry, I've got the wrong one. It was VK passed more to Everton than us. So what do you make of that statement?
Spot on, agree, mate. You know how I think about him. Look, I'm not trying to be overly harsh on him, but everything he said's bang on the money. He gets caught out of position way too much. When he makes his runs forward to try and provide that option, he's getting in Mavadidi's way quite often. So sometimes that link up doesn't work. And also the biggest thing is when we get caught out in transition and he's gone further up the pitch, we get caught out of our pants down. So there's been quite a few times where we've been lucky to not concede a goal, and directly because he's been well out of position. He put maybe one cross in that game, and it wasn't that great either. And taking Madidi off completely eliminated that right-sided, right foot cross into the box, which he put a multitude of in. So Victor Christensen, I still don't understand why JJ is not the left side. He's a lot more defensively resolute, although I think he had a very average game. But Christensen, I just think that he's not doing it for me. He hasn't had a good game yet.
Yeah, I'd agree. Well, someone said, which is fair, that he had he's been extremely subpar other than that Spurs game. I agree. I think he was quite decent against Spurs. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to play this type of system, then other teams that play similar styles but get better results, Villa, they often play Luca Digne in that position, and he really gives you an attacking threat. So he's not the best defensively either, but offensively, he adds a lot to your team. Ipswich, they played Leif Davis there. Similar style. He got 20 assists in the Championship last season. Again, it's the same thing. Defensively, he's poor. He gets caught out of position. But you're willing to say, okay, you know what? This guy's worth having in the team because he gives you so much in attack. But the thing is that Christensen doesn't really give you either of those things. Right? I just want to move it on because there's an interesting discussion going on in chat at the moment. Why is everyone hating Harry Winks? Thought he had a pretty decent game. What do you make? Because I've got something to say on this issue. Harry Winks, what did you think?
I thought he had a very average game. And what I want to ask you is this. This is the question. Now, never have I seen him in all the time I've seen him at Leicester turn the ball over so much. He's usually Mr. Reliable with his line-breaking passes. He's absolutely excellent. Now, is that on Harry Winks, or is that on how we're being coached by Steve Cooper right now and the positioning of all the other players? If you put Harry Winks aside right now, if there's anyone that's most frustrated with Enzo leaving, I think it's this man. What are your thoughts?
He probably will be, but I think you've got to look at the game structurally and also come to sort of some reason why that's happening. So what's happening this season is I think more teams are... But basically, the difference between Cooper and Enzo is even though they have the kind of double pivot, actually we're more of a single pivot than the double pivot, if that makes sense. And we rely more upon wings. So with, I don't know if you saw Chelsea play earlier, but they were using Cucurella and Caicedo as the double pivot. And it meant that both of them offered the bounce pass. But with us, we're playing basically the ball's getting played more into Winks than it is to whoever's playing alongside him. So he's getting targeted more. So you're right. So I have to say, like, some people said he was bad. Sean saying, Harry Winks wasn't bad, but the system doesn't suit him, which I guess is the point you're making. Tom here, Thomas Matthews, Winks, meh. I think I would say as well, I think he has been a bit meh, right? And I think I wouldn't say he's been bad this season, but he definitely hasn't hit the heights of last season. But while some of that I think is the system, I don't think it's just that, right? Winks controls plays naturally, can't drop someone like that. Not sure. And this is what Thomas is saying, which I agree. Why did he keep doing those floating crosses? He just kept doing them, even though it was blindingly obvious Pickford would swallow them up. I agree. In the 90th minute, in the last 4 minutes, Winks did 2 stupid lofted crosses that just gave the ball away. He might as well just had a shot. It was pointless. Maybe he's a bit below confidence. Maybe he doesn't feel like with Cooper. So look, what I'm saying is, though, is I think even if and look, I'm not Cooper's biggest fan either. I'm saying that I think Harry Winks is not quite on it right now. And a few people said that they were a bit surprised that it was Skip that was taken out of the team and not Harry Winks. Because if I'm being honest, from what I've seen of both of them so far this season, I'm not going to say that Winks has been bad, but he definitely hasn't been top class. Whereas I think Skip has outperformed him. Ndidi today, you mentioned it as well. After an initially rough 10 minutes, actually, he was getting on the ball and turning beautifully. He did it so many times. And up front, he was winning the ball. I think he got another assist today, by the way. If not, he made it happen off the corner. So he had a very good game. But yeah, look, I've got to call it how I see it. I think Harry Winks hasn't been up to his usual high standards. I'm a bit surprised as to why. Maybe he is missing having Ricky next to him. I mean, it might sound stupid, but if you're used to it, that could be the case. All right, do you want to talk any more about Harry, or shall I move on?
No, let's move on.
Let's move on, shall we? Okay, let's come to some other plays. Okay, I want to spend some time talking about this, and I'd love to hear what chat thinks. Chat, what do you think about Caleb Okoli? Because Luke, give me the exact words that you said to me about Caleb Okoli after pre-season.
I thought he was an absolute donkey, waste of money, ugly pineapple haircut, an absolute crime against the Italians. But listen,
but what do you think now?
Mate, he's looking like our best. You were right to point out, right now he's looking like our best centre back. He's in the positioning at the right time to defend. He's timing the interceptions perfect. He's holding the ball up well and he's laying off the pass at the perfect time so everyone can get back into position. So I think that structurally, defensively, we've not been that poor. It's one of the positive things I could say maybe about Cooper. But Okoli has been getting better week in, week out for me, and he's probably our standout centre back.
Just want to give a few shout outs. Dawn, on way back from the game, very disappointing. I'm sorry you both had to see that performance and be hit in the rain like that. Callum, giving a shout out to you, Luke. Hi, Luke. Leicester City have a Carabao game against Walsall on Tuesday night. Yeah, that'll be like a good one. Luke, that's wild. One thing I like about Luke is he ain't going to sugarcoat it. He will never not let you know how he feels. An LCFC fan goes, he's what we wanted in fast. I would kind of agree. Sean, his passing needs to improve, but overall improving his game. Look, I think even his passing was quite good in the game today. There was quite a few times where he had it and he was under pressure and he turned out of the pressure pretty well and he kept the ball going. For me, I actually think the one point in the game where I was a bit unhappy with him was when Calvert-Lewin got in one-on-one and basically he was caught in between, should I shepherd it out or should I go for the challenge? And I think he needed to go for the challenge, in my opinion. Because Calvert-Lewin got the shot away. And luckily, Mads managed to make the save. To be fair, he probably didn't want to give away a penalty, which is fair. And if you're not confident in it, but I think if you're then going to try and push the player out, you could do that a bit better as well. But I think that's quite a harsh criticism from me. And basically, why I'm bringing him up is that overall, I think he was good. If he can prove his aerial dominance, he would be unstoppable. Because DCL won the ball 4 out of 5 times against him. I do agree with you, and that's something that I pointed out in the pre-match. But one thing I want to say, though, is that Calvert-Lewin, I think, is maybe the best striker in the Premier League in terms of aerial ability, maybe outside of Haaland. Like, literally, if you look at his stats, I'm not making it up, Calvert-Lewin, in terms of aerials won, is like top 7th percentage for players. So what I'm saying is even if you were frigging... even if you're Saliba, you're not going to have a standard day at the office, right? Although Saliba probably would do better. But we'll move on. But I've got to say that actually to begin with, we were like, why have we signed this player? I don't understand it. He looks like a donkey. He doesn't look good. And actually, in the end, he's actually arguably the best signing that we've made over the summer so far, I would say. He slotted in very nicely. It's who's playing alongside him, not who starts for me. I think he's been impressive. Yes, I think we've talked a lot about JJ, but let's just talk a little bit more about him overall performance. So some people were saying that he was okay in the second half, not that great in the first. What did you make of his game overall? For what it's worth, in the end, he's ended up with a 7.7 rating on SofaScore. So just shows you what he's done in the second half.
Yeah, overall, not as bad as everyone else makes him out to be. I think he would look a lot better as well if he had Fatawa sitting in front of him as well. I think there's something to be said for that as well in terms of link-up play. But look, I trust JJ a lot more than I trust Victor Christensen. Let's just put it that way. JJ, I think he had one decent cross in from the first probably 10 minutes or 15 minutes up that right-hand side. We're right to point out that it's probably him going to be progressing up the pitch, but look, he wasn't at his best today, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the worst game. But a lot of people seem to think that he was ugly today.
Yeah. I think that the issue is, and everyone knows it, is that even the blind man can see this, is that if you're going to play this way, why is that not Ricardo Pereira? And then if you want to have a left back, that's fine. Just play JJ, because Christensen's made one cross of his left foot the entire game. So you're literally not missing out if you do that way. And would the team be better? Absolutely. This one say Kunal, Okoli and Vestergaard would be a good partnership. I would like that. That could have been better today. Although let's talk about Fast quickly. I don't think he was too bad overall. We just neither. I mean, he made a lot of clearances. I don't think he was at fault for the goal, for example.
Fast was, not that bad, excuse me, but I think there was plenty of times, I don't know how many, let me know in the comments, but there was a lot of times where I noticed Madidi and acres of space on the left-hand side, and I would have loved to seen some more of his trademark crosses diagonally across the pitch and try and get Madidi to turn the ball over. But I think he made a decent block in the first half. Mm-hmm. He didn't go walkabout. Sometimes he's always got a dodgy mistake in him. I thought Fast was just, not amazing, but not bad. I thought he was all right today.
Cool. Just want to ask chat, who was man of the match today? If you want to put that in the comments, because I think I know who you're going to say and we'll probably come to him in a moment. Here we go. Actually, Neil, I won't say he was at fault. He ran right across the track of man and left a plethora of space for NDI to run into. Is that JJ you're talking about? If that's the case, I mean, perhaps. I think, I left an absolute black hole in defence. Yeah, perhaps. And then I think this is basically your point, right? Fast was all right, not extraordinary, and did nothing wrong, but I think we're missing Vestergaard's passing accuracy. That's probably what it's right. So, next one I'm going to come on to is the person who I think was easily the man of the match. Steffi Madidi. Has to be Steffi. Has to be. And do you know what? You should honestly get arrested for taking someone like this off and keeping Jordan Ayew on. What is that all on about? Absolutely bonkers. Here we go. Locks even. He's not gone home. Still have a very hot head over the Madidi sub. Absolutely. We'll come to that in a moment, but talk to me about him. Did he do anything wrong? Was that, in fact, let me ask you, was that Steffi Madidi or was that Leroy Sané? I couldn't tell the difference. And I'm talking about the good one that was playing for Man City before he went to Bayern Munich again.
No, let's put some respect on that name. That's Madidi. He's his own man, and he's going to come into his own. And I looked forward to that a lot. I think that he's never really had the chance to play in the Premier League, Arsenal Youth Academy. Never had a minute, and this is his chance. He's 25, 26, prime of his career. This is his chance to put his stamp and authority in his name. I think he offered a multitude of crosses into the box. He was doing his trademark step overs, his dribbling. He was beating and taking his man on. He was also tracking back defensively when needed be as well. There's something to be said for that. So he was brilliant there as well. I think overall his game was superb and brilliant to get another goal. And I hope that he stays at left-hand side. Was it criminal to take him off? Yes, it broke the momentum and it got rid of the option to be able to cross it off the right foot into the box. So why not? If you're going to take him off, which we just said is criminal, why would you not rotate Ayew onto the left and then
insane.
Insane. 2 times he's done that. Insane.
Yeah, and why it's working. I mean, right. Firstly, we'll come to that in a moment, but I think Tyler, I want to say this is the best comment in the stream so far, so love it. Madidi was my man of the match, but only in the second half. I thought he was poor in the first half because Bilal was in his way. And Luke, I have to say, you said that to me during the first half when we were watching the game. You said players are getting in each other's way. They're occupying the same spaces. And you're right. Now, someone else, I forget who you are, so apologies to you, but they said as well that like the way that Cooper plays is he does encourage those tens to drift out to the left-hand side because Buonanotte drifts out to the right. And Bilal drifts out to the left-hand side. But you're right, he got in his way. And so again, when you had Buonanotte, and then what happened is actually Ndidi pushed up to vacate that space, and Madidi was being able to be one-on-one on the left-hand side. And when he was, Steffi gives me Zaha vibes with a better attitude. It is funny though, he does look happier, I would say as well, probably because he's back in the team. Because sometimes, Steffi would score and he just looked like he was completely unbothered. But maybe now that he's in the Premier League, I mean, he's honestly looked very good. And yeah, this is impressive because this is now a couple of games that he's really been probably our best attacking outlet. LCFC fan, the play was completely focused on the left-hand side. If we had Fatal, we would absolutely pressure Everton into a self-destructive shell. See, this is what I agree with you and why I can't believe it is you're literally, the way we're playing is you're isolating a winger one-on-one with versus their fullback and he's destroying him, right? And then you're thinking, oh, that's great. They've got a top-class winger. Then you think, man, imagine if you were a team that had two top-class wingers. But we do have two top-class wingers. And the thing is that if you do that, then the opposition are in such sixes and sevens because it's like, do you double up on one? Then they just play it to the other side. Then they double up on the other guy. And then there's spaces in the middle. That's literally how the Enzo system works. And yes, this is why coming again. It reminds me how Enzo, KDH used to drag a man towards Steffi, doubling up on the first half was really hindering him. Yeah, you're right there in terms of getting it. So there you go. Simon's saying he was better in a Palace game, but that's mainly because the three worked better. So I assume it will back to Madidi as the 10 versus Arsenal. Be interesting to see that. I mean, not really looking forward to the Arsenal game, I've got to say. Skip should have started alongside Winks. Well, that's interesting. So I'll tell you what, let's come to another person. So I think this was also a contender of the man of the match, but definitely nowhere near as good as Steffi Madidi. But Ndidi, what did you make of Wilfred Ndidi in this game, Luke?
Very, very good game. Like I said earlier, gotten much better at receiving the ball. He's back to goal, turning and running. A few times we let off some good passes, and there's a few times we turned the ball over and the move broke down. He had a dodgy shot at goal, but at least he's having a crack. But I think that he looked really, really good actually today alongside Harry Winks. He was the better player in that double pivot. I was worried about getting caught out with him, but no, he was the one that had Skip's position, pushing further up the pitch. He can win the ball still in that position. So, and he did as well with those big legs of his. So I thought Ndidi was probably my second contender for man of the match. So I think he had a really good game, and he's looking confident as well. He's looking like he's getting better every week. You can tell he's a confidence player, and you can tell that he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Now he's the most expensive player, I think, wages-wise, and he's playing like it. So he's got a point to prove.
Man, you do not like his paycheck, do you, Luke? That's something I've noticed about you. Well, but look, I would say I think overall he's been our best player this season. I think he's added a lot to his game. I think he's one of those players that he's probably been told his entire career that he's good and not good enough to like get on the ball and play. But actually, he's pretty good. That said, there were definitely two moments. There was one I remember where he tried a reverse pass to Vardy and it almost came off. And had it have come off, it would have been a great goal, but he probably should have shot. But yeah, this is like a fair point from Chips. Not gonna lie, Ndidi does so good just to fumble the bag. He can't shoot for shit. Yeah, that's kind of my point. He had that was the other one I was gonna come to where he had like a good effort, but he put it wide. And it's like one of those that like if he could finish, he would really be sensational. He probably wouldn't be at Leicester if that was the case. Sean, is a box midfield too much to ask for? Well, yeah, that's kind of the difference in the way that we play, isn't it? Is that even though, yeah, we kind of gone away from the box, haven't we? Because, we're just having three in the middle rather than the four. And I think that the four would work just so much better. But I will say that it was noticeable that Ndidi got better the more he pushed up. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Like when basically in the second half, because we were going for it, he wasn't really playing as a double pivot. I wouldn't quite say he was playing as a 10, but he definitely was playing way further forward than Winks. And Buonanotte was drifting inside. And I think those two together, like fair play to Buonanotte. What I liked about him is that sometimes he's even cropping up on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, the middle. Like they were trying to win the ball back. And I think we were winning a lot of 50-50s. Good game, but why didn't he shoot when he had the opportunity? Exactly. It was right here for him. Alice Southampton. I agree with you 100%. We've covered. I won't go so too long. Okay. Do you want to talk any more about Bilal? I think we kind of covered him in the first half, right? one to forget, maybe things. All right, let's talk about this quickly because he obviously, in fact, let's talk about the subs in general, right? So we've got Fatawu and we'll talk about Edouard and maybe a bit about Vardy. So yeah, criminal. Why is Fatawu come on? He should be playing on the right-hand side if he does come on, not the left-hand side. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely true. How about Edouard and Vardy? What did you make of the pair of them?
Vardy didn't really have much to do in this game. I thought he was going to be coming off that first half. I thought he tweaked his knee. Thankfully, he's okay. He was dropping a little bit more deep, not as deep as he was in the end zone, but you can see typically sometimes, particularly if Ndidi is playing as a 10, whoever's playing as that 10 position will sometimes even drift further than Vardy. So Vardy will drop deep. He's ready for hopefully for us to have the ball and then make that run off the shoulder like he so normally does. But didn't really have much of the ball, didn't really do too much today, but wasn't really at fault for anything. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Vardy I thought was okay. He didn't really get enough service. I think they handled him quite well, but I think that's unfortunate that, that was a mistake that we made. I mean, like I say, because the first half, like Bilal missed quite a few passes into Vardy and some of them were pretty easy. So that hurt us. Didn't really get going. Second half, he was starting to make runs again. That if Ndidi finds him with that reverse pass, all he needs probably would have been a chance and we might have scored. So he's occupying a man. A lot of people were saying that Vardy should have come off sooner. I'd probably agree with that. Although, do you know what? I was tempted to say, why don't we put two men up top and just keep trying to win like the knockdowns? Because, that was as should have been dragged by the 60th minute. He's been way overused. I think you've got a point there. I will say as well, it was noticeable as well that Buonanotte coming on, we improved, but also as the rain kind of reduced itself, we also seemed to play better. But then kind of moving on to Edouard, it's funny. This was a funny comment that I just saw. Zaid said, Edouard looks like a faster Iheanacho. Obviously, didn't really have that much time, but what did you make of him when he was on the pitch?
One decent chance when he was inside the box. I think he lost his footing a bit. I think he slipped. I think I need to see more of him before I talk about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's fair and very rational comment. I just want to ask everyone in chat whilst we go to some other ones, because I think there's going to be a lot of comments on this. Can you message me with either an in or out for Steve Cooper? 5 games in, we won a cup game, plus we've had some pre-seasons. After what you've seen after these 5 games, are you Steve Cooper in or are you Steve Cooper out? And the first person is the person that I'm co-hosting with. So tell me why.
Tell you why, because again, ridiculous starting 11s, playing people out of position and it's not working, yet he persists with it. The writing's on the wall. Not starting Ricardo Pereira is sackable offense enough in itself. He was my player of the season last season, just saying. And also, look, like you said, look, we've gotten a lot better in our 50-50s, but he's just, I don't want to get to 10 games and we keep feeling, oh, it's a draw again. We didn't get battered, but we didn't win either. We haven't won a game yet. And I don't want to get to 10, 11 games into the season and be cut adrift because we haven't picked up 3 points when we should have. We've got Arsenal next. I'm expecting to get my cheeks parted. Oh, not mine, but Leicester's cheeks parted for that. I'm not looking forward to that. Look, mate, I just can't see any evolution under Steve Cooper at all. I think it's going to be the same thing for the whole season if we keep him. And we're lucky to stay up in this season. How do you feel about the next season? It doesn't matter what players you get in. He's not going to use them effectively into their strengths, in my opinion. And I think we need to get rid of him like soon. And people think it's overreactive, but I just see it so plain and clear that there's only a plateau with him and it's just, hanging on. What are your thoughts?
We've got some really good comments here. I'm just going to read through some of them. So Locks is really telling us what he feels. He's doing a Luke, I would call it. So he's a pathetic manager. He's a loser. That's all I can say, a loser. So replace Coward Cooper with loser Cooper there. But I think some of the comments that I really like, and I think this sums up my kind of opinions too. So Tyler says, feels like our shape is completely imbalanced. Ayew on the right should be complemented with Ricardo. We had absolutely zero right-sided threat. Exactly. Madidi and Victor playing together doesn't make sense either. And so what he's saying is, I just don't get some of the things that he does. And I definitely agree. There's things he does that are just plain weird. Like I said, when you're putting Fatawu on, why then don't you just swap them over? So why would you want to do that? Because then Fatawu can cut in on his left foot and have a shot, which is what Madidi was doing, which is why he was so good. Just doesn't make sense. Zaid said, sadly, looks like a good guy, but his decisions are so bad and the players look confused. And we have seen there are some comments in there as well. Chip saying it's only the elderly who want Cooper and I still don't know why. That maybe is a bit harsh, but I sort of see what you're saying there. I think people do want to give it time. And look, I think right here, 100% what Luke said, bang on, no evolution. There won't be any evolution under this boring loser manager. Just missed out Coward there as well, to be honest with you. Wait for the international break to sack Cooper. That is what I think might well happen if it goes on this way, even though it's not tragic. And then Chips has said, well, what's the point? We're not being Arsenal. Just do it now. But I suppose you want to sound out the manager. Look, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I agree with this. He hasn't adapted to Leicester's strong suits. He's reinforcing his own ideals, and it's not working at all. The Get It Forward Brigade are happy, though. So, yeah, you asked me what my opinion is. Well, look, I've got some things here, so I just want to go through it. Here's the table as it stands. So despite the fact that we've drawn, at the end of the day, we've neither moved up nor down. We've stayed where we are in 15th. Palace haven't played today, but let's assume that they win. So we might have dropped one position. But as it stands, we're not in the bottom three. Wow, it looks like Southampton and Ipswich drew in the end. Okay, so that's an interesting result. So that's as you were. And so have we. So in terms of the relegation 6-pointers, actually everyone just picked up a point. Wolves are the surprise package that I don't think anyone would expect to see them bottom after 5 games, but they are. So that's where we are. But I think, Cooper's made some very bold decisions and they just haven't come off. And the thing is that, like, I think it's fine for you as a manager to have your own philosophy and to strongly want to do something, but then you've got to make it work. So, for example, last season, Enzo, I know that you and I were fans of his, but a lot of people weren't his fans. They didn't like the style of football. They thought it was boring. They didn't like playing out from the back. They thought using Ricardo as an inverted fullback was nonsense. They didn't like seeing Ndidi as a box crasher. No, listen, it's fair enough to have those statements. But do you know what? To be fair, all of those fans would say, I don't like it, but at the end of the day, we're top of the table and I just want us to get promoted. So I'm okay with it, which is fair, right? That's one of those things. It can be like, all right, if I don't like your style of play and I don't like you as a person, but if you're doing your job, I'll give you a pass. But the problem with Cooper is that Cooper is both playing a style and system that no Leicester fan wants. I don't think anyone would want to see us line up in this way. They might not want us to go back to the Enzo system, but I can bet your ass that no one would have this type of setup. And we haven't got the result. Like, it would be different if we beat Palace and Everton and we're sitting mid-table on 7 or 8 points. It would be like, you know what? We're impressed. We don't agree with how he's doing it, but he's winning us over. But he's not. Yeah, well, what's the point of a manager if he's doing what Cooper's doing? The comment or the name that's coming up time and time again here is everyone saying get Corberan or convince someone with the amount of money the board, Matt. Why don't they should be able to find a manager? I mean, I would love to have Corberan. That's the one we were after. And it does say a lot that Corberan right now, well, he was, as of yesterday, top of the championship with West Brom, that no one backed and thought they were going to have an awful season. They're not. Tyler is an interesting one. Enzo changed my mind on a lot of things, but I think Ndidi was used that way primarily because of a lack of alternate options. I agree, but I think he's shown already this season that he's it's working. And love Ray's rational comments. He says Cooper plays scared, coward. You could say, right? Having a single lonely striker doesn't portray a positive attitude. Fair point as well. I mean, like I say, look, guys, in the comments as well. Why is Steve Cooper in love with Jordan Ayew? I want to say that I'm not an Ayew hater. I think he's decent, but I cannot believe that in a game like this, when you're desperate to get another goal, that you wouldn't have taken him off and put Fatawu on with like 20 minutes to go. Like, the subs take so long to take. Speak to me, Luke.
I think it's clear and evident when you can see a lot of his lineup that Cooper favors physical players over like skill and someone that's going to take his man on and progress the ball up the pitch. He wants someone that's going to win that 50-50. He's either going to win that 50-50 or he's going to hold the ball up and draw a foul. I can't think of any other reason than putting him on that right-hand side than that. The only thing that I'm at least thankful for is he's not playing Tacova Reid.
Yeah, at least that he's been stunk like a stone, hasn't he? Yeah, like Phil, great comment. Cooper needs to think more about the attacking play. The dual threat of Fatawu and Madidi is a must-go, for they scared the hell out of the opposition defence. I would have played Skip also. I think Phil and I might be related because he's basically saying everything that I agree with. He almost brought Bobby Reid on. I shudder to think, but I bet he did. Ayew is fantastic as a game management player. Fatawu will make his mark over this type of open game. Bang on, exactly. Like if you're 2-1 up with 15 minutes to play and you put Jordan Ayew on, no one's complaining, right? But this is the opposite of what to do,
Good comment.
Sure, been good, but why wait that long or made the Ayew sub for Fatawu? Absolutely agree. And Paul, think you're summing it up. You just need the right system to get the best out of the players. But have we got the manager to kind of pick up that right system? So look, I think we'll round it off because we kind of looked at it a lot. Let's just take a look at the results then. So this is how it ended. Let's concentrate on the games that are around us. So Bournemouth lost. I think they're high in the table, but I don't think they've played that well. And I think that they could be a team that fall away. Southampton and Ipswich drawing, I think, is huge. Although it kind of shows you that I think today the biggest losers, even though they haven't lost, are actually Leicester and Southampton, aren't they? Because they've got home games in the 6-pointers and they haven't been able to get the things. I just want to bring this comment up. This is actually making me laugh. LCFC fan. It's crazy how logical the fan base is compared to the fucking manager himself. Nonsensical. Absolutely making me laugh. I'm always pissing myself here. That is true.
And get that ugly orc that looks like Gollum that could eat an apple for a tennis racket and Steve Cooper and say to him, I want you to explain to me why you are not playing Ricky P.
Yeah, do you know what, Luke? I totally agree with you. And that's something that I don't like about people that are in the press and have a bit of a say. So I doubt he's watching. But for example, Owen Palmer Atkinson, I like him, but I think he's playing too much, Love it. Luke, you are the Aussie expressions. Don't know if you've met him on the Spurs channel. You just got to say fam and blood a bit and then we'll get it, or whatever the Aussie equivalent are. Other ones that are important though, Wolves lost, which makes them bottom of the table. Now that is a surprise. And I think Gary O'Neill's under pressure and he might get sacked. And this is the thing, right? So not only, oh my God, I love this. You could learn from this as well, Luke. Only 1 month till I can dress up as Steve Cooper for Halloween. Scary. Do you know what? I was so tempted if we lost, I was going to be using a picture of Steve Cooper looking like the wet golem on the bench. He just looked absolutely atrocious, didn't he? But yeah, what I was going to say is that Wolves might well make a change, right? And here's the problem. The longer that you leave it, the fewer managers that are available. So what's happened so far is that, do you remember again, when Rodgers got sacked, there was no one other than Dean Smith to take on because people had already gone. Whereas that same season, Aston Villa sacked Steven Gerrard and brought Unai Emery in, right? So that just goes to show you. And like right now, I can give you 2 managers that I think are realistic that could take over. One is obviously Graham Potter. I think a lot of people would be like, well, he said no to us so many times. Do we really want to get him? And I think that's fair to say that you wouldn't want him. Another one that I think would be a bit of a gamble, but I could see him coming, is Roger Schmidt. So Roger Schmidt was sacked from Benfica. It didn't go so well for him, but previously he was in charge at PSV. And do you remember when we played PSV in the European Conference League? When they had Ibrahim Sangare and players like that. And they played pretty nice football. I think they played the better football than us over the 2 legs, but they got sacked. Speaks English. He's Dutch, so he's going to be very arrogant. Will probably play an attacking style of play. He's someone that's available. And that's not even talking about Corbrand. They're 2 options that are literally free. There's also a guy called Jurgen Klopp, but I don't think we'll get him. But, there are some kind of options. So I guess what I'm saying is that the longer that we wait, that's the thing. Steve Cooper looks like Palpatine from Star Wars. I pretty much agree. And yeah, he's all trick and no treat with Steve Cooper. Look, I think to be fair, given that it's 5 games and we're not in the bottom 3, you could say, okay, that's why we're not going to do that. And we're being a little bit harsh. But at the same time, we've had 3 home games. We've won none of them. We, in fact, have only got 2 points out of a possible 9 at home. And Steve Cooper has only won 2 away games since he's been in the Premier League. And, I bet you're still waiting for us to win so bad to use a Steve Cooper cigarette pick. The problem is, Zay, the way that it's going is I think that pick is never going to be used, which is terrifying, isn't it? That it could be doing that. Right, let's wrap up. I'll let you have the final thoughts, Luke. You've got a whole minute and a half to tell me what's the story of the game and what do you think is going to happen next week at Arsenal. Actually, we've got Walsall before that, but I'm kind of ignoring that game.
If we go and look, I'm not really expecting anything. It's probably going to be a free hit against Arsenal, but regardless, let's go past that because the next game after that doesn't matter how much we get battered by Arsenal. If I don't see Boyanotti starting that 10 position, Madidi, Fataria and both sides of the wing, I've lost all hope in Cooper. He's makes no sense to be starting 11. I cannot comprehend why he thinks that, and I'm not going to bang on about Ricardo Pereira again. But look, let's just wait and see how much we get spread by Arsenal next week and have this conversation again.
Shall we send tennis rackets to the King Power for Cooper's Christmas present? He likes eating apples through them, right? We should see. And yeah, look, Paul summed it up. Leicester must learn from the sacking of Brendan Rodgers' mistake. The board will sack Cooper in the next 6 weeks. I mean, look, I think results will ultimately determine it. Do you know what my real worry is, though, Luke? Is that we're out of the bottom 3 for most of the season. So the board keep it there. And then let's say in the last 5 to 6 games of the season, we tumble into the bottom 3. And by then it's too late. And everyone would have said you should have got rid of him at Christmas time or in the international break where a new manager would make the difference. That's what I'm really scared of. Like, I think to be fair, and okay, so I'm actually going to steal from you and use like the rational thoughts. I think if we look at this game overall as a whole, and in fact the entire season, there's definitely something I would say. And that is that overall, Leicester have once again been competitive. I don't think we've looked like we're completely second best in any game so far. That game is going to come and it's going to be the very next game, let's be honest, against Arsenal. But I think Arsenal, Man City, they're in a league of their own right now. They're having a mini league. They're in fact playing tomorrow. One of them is going to win the title. So outside of that, we've actually looked very competitive. I think to be fair, look again today, we've got more tackles, we made more passes. So we're aggressive. We are winning the ball back, right? And we are competing in matches. But I think for me, look, this again is another game where we've had a lower XG than the opposition. And I can actually tell you, we've had a lower XG than every single team we've played against this season. What does that mean? That means that the underlying stats say that we actually should be losing or drawing every game, right? It's not one of those cases where you can say we're unlucky not to win, right? Because the stats don't say that. And even against Palace, even though we were 2-1 up with 5 minutes to play, the stats said they should have been 2-1 up, not the time. And, you know, this is the thing. Cooper stalls the car every fucking time. And ultimately, Ray, you've put it right. It's results that matter. Points. So let's leave it there. I think, look, at least we didn't lose it. I think if it was a loss, everyone would be Cooper out. I think with a point, you can probably say it's as you were. But given the injury ravaged nature that Everton had there, I feel like that was a real opportunity wasted. I think, again, if we'd have been more aggressive earlier on, if we'd have made that sub at halftime, Buonanotte, rather than waiting 10 minutes, that gives you an additional 10 minutes. Why attack Madidi off when he's your best player? Really, really irritating. So, look, everyone, thank you so much. Luke, do you want to say anything just before we do, guys? Would love it. Thank you for getting involved in the comments. Please subscribe and like for Fox's Sake TV and LCFC Down Under. We appreciate this. We'll be doing this every single week. Luke, you got one closing thought, and I'm going to leave this comment on the screen while it does. You finish it off for us.
Okay, so I'll leave everyone in the comments of this and think about this overnight. I'll put your comments in now. What does Cooper bring to the table? Everyone who was pitched as, we get relegated, which is defeated before we even began. He's good with youth. We got in Golding. We haven't even seen him on the bench. We've seen very little of Casey McAteer. I know that you've shouted for him being a decent impact sub. And the problem is that we have no real position to be able to be experimenting too much. We just saw what happened with Bilal. So like experimenting with youth and we're trying to stay up in the Premier League doesn't really work. So then why did we bring him in? So was that on the board or just because we got desperate? Think about that, because in my opinion, he brings nothing in terms of evolution, which we just discussed.
Yeah, that's your overriding thought. I mean, I might just put a dinosaur picture and say a lack of evolution with Steve Cooper, or you could have it like AI, like can you make a dinosaur evolve into Steve Cooper? I'll have to see if that's possible to kind of do it. I would maybe defend him a bit there because he is playing Christensen, Okoli, JJ. So he's probably brought the average profile of the team down quite a bit, but it's just not good there. And, you know, what's basically come up here is that Owen Palmer-Atkinson has asked Cooper about the sub. He said he thought Madidi has run his race and given the opportunity, he would make the decision again. And everyone's gone, you know, what do you mean I'd do it again? What an absolute. And no, I like this. He's like an actual villain. I've done it before and I'll do it again. We'll leave it like that. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Locks, for running Matchday Live. Always have a lot of fun running it. I love interacting with you guys. What's coming up? I'll do a post-match analysis on this one. Should be quite an interesting one, actually, I think. Will really be a story of two halves, I think. We've got Walsall midweek. I'm not going to cover that one too much. I am interested in the Cup. It's just time takes a lot. But the next big one is Arsenal. We'll see you around for that. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Luke, for joining me. Take care, everyone. And we will see you next time. Up the Leicester. Come on, you Foxes. Bye-bye.